Welcome to the Wrestling Universe channel. My name is Cosk. Today I am joined by the one, the only, Andarell.
Hey man, great to be here.
And today we have a very interesting topic. In the wrestling community, something that's very popular in any community in general is hot takes. It feels like a lot of the times people kind of agree on the same points, but there's always that one point everybody has, or in this case, 3 points, that they don't, they're out of the ordinary. They're the black sheep of your opinion. And I thought we would focus on that today. So I'm going to give a hot take. Andrew's going to give a hot take. And we're going to go kind of in rotation until we have three hot takes each. We're going to discuss them all. And, let's just go right into it. Andrew, you're the guest here. So I will give you the
Yes,
first hot take. What's
thank
your
you, man.
What's your first hot take?
Okay, so my first hot take is something that I've talked about many times when we have talked in the past, and it has to do with the brand split. Because I believe that when it comes to wrestling going forward, I feel like a brand split like they do in WWE right now. I think that is how wrestling should go forward. So I get that all the small, minor indie scenes and all that, they cannot do it. But when it comes to big promotions like WWE, AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, like those big ones, I feel like brand splits is how wrestling should be forward. And the reason for that is that I feel like wrestling is now at a point where it's so much more about the actual wrestling. It's more about the sports part in it than it has ever been before. And I feel like also when it comes to something like UFC, which is a very different thing, but kind of similar in some ways as well, that's very much based on the sports part, and we have different divisions and all of that. And I feel like it's very more interesting to watch wrestling when you also like when you know that these guys they maybe can't wrestle right now against each other because they're on different brands. It creates that scenario of like you're thinking more about what can happen in the future as well. And something like Survivor Series can be more interesting because that's that one time of the year where they actually can face each other. So I think something like brand split is how I think wrestling should be forward when it comes to the big promotions. I get that when it comes to WWE, they have not always done it the right way, but I think if done the exact right way, I believe that's what AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and WWE more successfully should do going forward. I think it will create much more of a sports feeling and a much more realistic feeling to this product that we are creating.
I half agree. In the sense, I agree with
Mm,
WWE.
mm,
Absolutely. I think the promotion should be brand split.
yeah.
And I also agree with AEW. I was honest. This was quite controversial when it started Collision, and there were rumors of a brand split. But personally, I was all for it. And I think
Yeah.
even though they haven't gone fully brand split, you've already seen the benefits of what a brand split can do for AEW. Because on Collision, guys who maybe haven't been given the chance to showcase themselves on as much on Dynamite, like FTR, who were the tag champions but weren't given enough TV time to really showcase themselves, or best example I would say is Juice Robinson. Like with
Mm,
this extra TV time, with this brand that they've kind of been separated on, you don't really see them on Dynamite anymore. They feel like
mm,
massive deals. Jay White went from a guy who was kind of mid card in AEW to now being one of the top guys. He has a win over CM Punk. Ricky Starks, same situation. He has a singles victory over CM Punk. So I think you bring up a very good point. I don't really know if I agree with New Japan mostly because I don't
mm.
watch New Japan enough to really give an informed opinion on that, but it could
Yeah.
be the case. I just
So
don't.
can I say something on that quickly?
Yeah.
I think when I say New Japan, that's not necessarily New Japan. They also have that with different weight classes a little bit. I don't watch New Japan that much either, but I know a little bit of the junior stuff and smaller guys, and so there's different kind of weight classes there. I know a little bit about. So it's not necessarily New Japan. It's just the idea of these the big promotions. You can say Impact as well. It's just more the idea of them looking that way and treating that as how we can do wrestling going forward. So it's not necessarily the specific promotion. It's just more, in general, what I think should be happening.
Yeah, overall, I would say I agree,
Mm.
and something I hope you agree with. And I'm gonna move on to mine now, and this is going to split a lot of opinions because this is a very controversial man in wrestling. There are some who love him, and there are some who hate him.
Mm.
I would say Kenny Omega is the
Ooh.
best in-ring wrestler of the 21st century. I think when you just look at his match catalog, you have the matches with Will Ospreay, you have the matches with Okada, you have his stuff with Hangman Page, his story with Hangman Page. Like the amount of excellent work he's done in his career, I think is bar none. I feel like he's at this extra level that everyone else is trying to reach. Obviously, like there are stuff which other people are better than him in. Like when it comes to drama in wrestling, I would put people like Roman Reigns over him. But when it comes to pure in-ring storytelling, Kenny
Mm.
Omega to me is the best of the century. I've absolutely
Mm.
adored his work. His match with Okada, his match with Chris Jericho, like those two matches, or the series of matches with Okada and then the match with Chris Jericho, are one of the main reasons that AEW exists in the first place.
Mm.
Kenny
Yeah.
Omega was so good that he essentially was a main factor in a new promotion being started.
Yeah. 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 You want my thoughts on it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's Kenny Omega is not necessarily a top favorite of mine, but I don't have anything against him either. But I think you can like him or hate him, and I can understand if some people think he's over the top in how he portrays himself, this very anime kind of character. Um, but I don't really think if we have to just simply look at stats and look at matches and all of that. I don't think there really is an agreement that he is one of the best today. You can't really argue it when you actually look at the matches because it is really, really great matches, some of them. So I agree in that. I don't know if he's necessarily the best one. I would also say that he's also probably one of those that has had the biggest names to fight. So I think there's other guys that maybe were in WWE, Bryan Danielson now, Seth Rollins maybe also, that has not necessarily have had as many big opponents. Kenny Omega have for a very long time been treated on the very top now, and has been facing the very best because of that. Where guys like Bryan Danielson was out for a very long time. When he came back, he started with feuds like Big Cass, which is not really a big opponent. Seth Rollins that has also been not treated as how good he is. So I think maybe there's some that is up there but has not been treated with the same amount of star level as he has. So I think maybe that can go for him. So I personally will probably not say the best, but I don't think there's really an argument for him being up there with just how many amazing matches he has had. So yeah.
So one for one so far. I think really good hot takes, and the floor is yours. What's your next one?
Okay, this one I think is one that will divide people, and it comes to AW, and it specifically comes to the whole idea of Forbidden Door, because I think a lot of people love that, and I do as well when it comes to like these big matches and all of that. But I think on a very story based level, I think it hurts the stories. I think it has gotten to a point where it's very much more about, oh, who's going to show up now? What can be this big dream match, more so than actually creating an interesting story. And when it came to the Forbidden Door pay-per-view that just happened, I have not even watched it. And normally
Wow.
I watch the AEW pay-per-views, and I know that there's some really good matches on there, and I plan on watching those matches. But it's not about the pay-per-view for me. It's about these specific matches that I care about because I like the two wrestlers. But I'm not interested in anything that has to do with the match. There's nothing story based I'm interested in. I'm simply interested in the idea of these guys fighting each other, you know. Who was it? Was it Bryan Danielson versus
Okada.
Okada, right? For
Yeah.
example, yeah, and Osprey versus Omega. That's two matches that I need to watch because I heard how amazing they were. But it's just simply because of the names in it. It's not because of any storylines built around it. And I get that's also the point, that it's not about storylines necessarily. It's about creating the big matches. I get that, and I to a certain degree like that. But Money in the Bank, for example, is something where I felt much more about, like, oh, what about the Bloodline storyline? I felt like that was interesting, even though Usos versus Solo and Roman is not really a match I care about. I'm much more involved in the storyline when it comes to that. And I think that's just in general something where I'm not really that much a fan of the Forbidden Door idea. But at the same time, I love it. I think it's amazing to see these guys. But I also think there's a problem with it when it comes to how much you as an AEW fan need to know about what's going on in the world. Because if you only watch AEW, if you're not familiar with anything else, it can be difficult when these guys from New Japan or somewhere else shows up. Because a lot of the excitement with Okada and all of that, that is how well known he is as a wrestler. So if you are very new to this, or just very casual when it comes to AEW, you will not really get that excitement, when it comes to Okada showing up. You can kind of compare to a little bit of Marvel MCU, if anyone follows that. Where it at this point it's very much about the whole multiverse thing, and everything with characters from the old Spider-Man movies and X-Men and all of that maybe showing up. And if you only watch MCU, you won't understand anything about who are these people. It's only because they, as the one making it, wants to make this fan service and expect their fans to know who these guys are. But if you are very casual and only know that specific style, like that company in AW, you won't really get that effect of this Forbidden Door surprise shows ups. It's another thing if they get signed to the company, but when it is people from another company only showing up for this match, it just kind of hurts also in that storyline level. But again, at the same time, I love the individual matches. Again, I need to watch these matches, but I think it kind of hurts the overall story thing around that company and also around AW being specific. It becomes much more, we need to follow up on everything wrestling based. So yeah, I kind of think that hurts a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'll be honest, the type of
Hmm?
fan I am,
Yeah.
I love Forbidden Door. Like,
Yes.
I'm a very, like, online, see everything
Yeah.
type fan. So, like, when you tell me Brian Danielson versus Okada, I'm like, oh my god, I don't need a story for that. But, like, at
Yeah.
the same time, not every fan is like that. You can't just. I think this is
Mm.
Tony Khan. Tony Khan is that type of fan. Like the type of fan I am. And let's not disrespect him because that would be disrespect to me, you know?
Mm.
So I'm not like
Mm.
insulting him for it. I'm just saying, like, he books kind of for himself what he finds appealing, but not every fan is like that. So for fans who don't keep up with New Japan, for fans who may be converted from WWE because they saw the ex WWE guys, they saw the Daniel Bryan's on the roster and the Chris Jericho's, and they don't keep up with New Japan,
Mm.
then and you're not like giving them a good story to like really get
Mm.
invested into these new guys, then it's like, okay, it's this AEW guy who I know versus this New Japan guy I've never heard
Mm.
of. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a problem with it because like
Mm.
it's for a certain audience, but like
Yes.
you can't expect your entire audience to like it. Is all I'm gonna say. Like
Mm.
it's essentially for I would say it's for AEW fans who want to get into New Japan and New Japan fans who want to get into AEW. Like it's a good starting
Yeah.
point. But it's
Yeah.
not like
Agree.
yeah, but it's not like a show that is really going to. It's a show that's only intrigues a portion of your audience, not going to intrigue all of them. Unlike maybe the Bloodline story, which 80% of WWE fans, for example, like.
Mm. Exactly. Yeah. 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 Exactly. It's very much like a certain specific kind of like audience, where every other AW pay-per-view, for example, that will clearly be very specific towards every AEW fan. Where with this, it still is to every AEW fan because they will know all the AEW guys clearly, but it is very certain also to you have to have a little bit of knowledge towards these New Japan guys to really love it, you know. Yeah.
Moving on to my hot take, we're
Mm,
going from AEW and WWE and New Japan, talking about all of those, to a promotion I know you're not too familiar with, but considering some of the content I've made here, I feel also my fan base is familiar with, and that is Impact.
mm,
Impact, in my opinion, not I would not say they're the best, the most glamorous promotion. I would not say they're the worst. In my opinion, though, they're the most consistent promotion out there.
mm,
Like when there's WWE and AEW, to me, I don't watch New Japan too much. I'm only like just kind of getting into it. But for the promotions I watch, it feels like it's a roller coaster. It feels like they have like these really, really, really good points where I'm like
yeah.
super invested, and then these really, really dark times where I like couldn't care less. Whereas Impact, so where AW and AW, WWE and AW are like this, right?
Mm, yeah.
uh Impact is like this, like it's
Mm,
this consistent promotion which always keeps the same level of quality, which is like at this really, really good level of quality. Like
mm,
it never like blows your mind. You're never
mm,
watching it and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened, because it's a
mm,
very small production company,
yeah.
but like it's very consistent. I enjoy it pretty much every week I watch it, and I feel like they don't get enough credit for it. Impact is
Mm,
very made fun of in the Impact in the IWC, to say the very least.
mm,
But I feel like we don't deserve that. I feel like TNA was a very roller coaster promotion where they had really good moments and really bad moments, but ever since 2018, Impact has not missed. They haven't like blown me away, but they've been very consistent. They've been the most consistent product, in my opinion, in North America. And I feel like they deserve more credit for it because I review the show every week, right?
mm,
And every time I watch it, I never leave an episode thinking, hey, I did not enjoy that. I never like can't wait to see more, but I always want to see more, you know?
mm, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I also feel like they're a very good, they have a really underrated roster too. Like, they're kind of like, mid is kind of used as an insult now, but like, not even mid because it's not average, but it's like kind of above average, where it's not like great blow. You're not getting Brian Danielson, you're not getting Roman Reigns, but they
Mm,
have a very solid roster. You know, the Motor City Machine Guns, Josh Alexander, Mike Bailey, Jonathan Gresham.
mm,
These guys who won't really get opportunities to be top guys in the big promotions, and you're seeing them showcase themselves to their full abilities. And
mm,
Impact is a promotion. I want to see guys like Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali, and like guys of that caliber. Maybe some
mm,
people in AEW too who aren't given the opportunity.
yeah.
Some people in AEW we've seen cross the line, and like Alan Angels and who else? Jonathan Gresham was ex AEW, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and like these guys are showcased so much better in Impact, and it really feels like if you want to watch guys showcase their full potential, if you want to watch a
Mm,
solid, good 2 hours of TV every week, Impact is the way to go, in my opinion.
okay. Interesting. Mm. Are you done or can yeah? Are you done? So can I say something about it?
Ah, yes, of course.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's honestly very interesting. Like I have to say I don't watch Impact. I've never watched it actually. I want to get into it at some point, but don't really know when. But I think that's honestly really interesting what you're saying because you are very right in what you say with WWE and AEW. It very much is a roller coaster, up and down. Um, and I think there is just this like it's not to say anything wrong about it because WWE has deserved to get to where they are now, and so have AEW. But it just feels like fans are just in general very loyal to the product they know. So maybe you can get tired of that. That's natural. But I know a lot of people that like if they watch WWE and then they think the product is bad, then they just don't watch wrestling. Like they don't go over to other companies instead because they're so loyal to the product that they know that they don't really want to experiment other stuff. Of course, there's a lot of wrestlers that do that as well, but there's a certain amount of people that just like they stick to the stuff they know. So if they can't get into it at a point, they just take a break from wrestling in general and then maybe return a few months later and give it a try once again. Um, so I think with the knowledge, the little knowledge I have of Impact, I think it is probably a very very underrated company that don't really get the attention that it deserves. And as you said, surely it probably never really goes crazy and is something really really big. And it's probably not the biggest names in all of wrestling, but that also makes sense that it is not that, since all those big names are in WWE or AEW mostly if it's in America, right? So a lot of the big excitement with WWE and AEW also can be the idea of you never know if something huge happens or someone big shows up suddenly, and you kind of know that that's not really going to happen in Impact because the biggest names won't really go down there, if you can say it in that very terrible way, because it is clearly not going down, but in terms of AW and WWE just is bigger. So I think I agree with you without really seeing much of the impact. I agree that it probably is very very underrated, because of them just not having the abilities to have this big spectacle. It's kind of like with with football or soccer here in Europe. I know you're not the biggest fan of that, but it's the idea of like there's certain levels to it. The biggest clubs get the biggest names clearly. So the smaller club you are, the lesser amount of money you have, the lesser amount of big players you can sign because you don't have that much money. And that is the same in the world of in wrestling, kind of, that the big money lies with WWE and AEW. So even though Impact probably makes a very consistent show and all of that, they just don't have the same muscles when it comes to money and as an opportunity to showcase their roster. So yeah. But I also think really quickly with what you're saying, that it's it's also an opportunity for the big guys, that the guys that has been in WWE or AEW that has not really been showcased that much. It's an opportunity to go there and be the absolute biggest names, because there will very likely be a certain amount of people that will see the card of Impact and say, "Hey, I know that guy from when I watched WWE or AW." Even though if you're not even the biggest name that was in AW or WWE, people will remember you. I will remember you. If I suddenly saw a guy that I know that I knew used to be in WWE, I would be like, "Hey, I know that guy from WWE. Maybe I should check this out." And I think that's an opportunity for a lot of guys that could go down in Impact and be big stars there. So yeah.
Yeah, we've seen it with Trinity, who was a fairly
Mhm.
big name
Yeah,
in WWE, but like it was always kind of underutilized. And in Impact,
exactly.
she's like the face of the Knockouts
Yes.
division, the women's division there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And still a really, really, really great wrestler. It's like maybe if we went 20 years back, it would be different. But in wrestling today, there are so many amazing stars. So if you're not in WWE, you can still be one of the best ever, because there is so many talented wrestlers out there. So yeah, absolutely.
So, two for two. Pretty good so
Yes.
far, I'd say. The first ones were more agreeable, but now, we're going down the rabbit hole. We're getting more
Yeah.
controversial as time goes on, and we have
Yeah.
the last two. We're gonna start off with
Mm-hmm.
you. I know mine is going to raise some eyebrows.
Uh-oh. Okay. I think the third one is difficult. I think I actually had one But I think I'm actually going to change it now. I'm going for a specific wrestler. Um, and and keep in mind that I'm not an expert in all of this. Maybe it's just me that's stupid and don't see the full potential yet. And it's also more the idea of the wrestler than it's necessarily the wrestler. Let me say it like that. I know that's a very big cliffhanger right there. But when it comes to MJF, he
Mine
is
is about
getting
MJF too.
what? Okay, really? Oh,
Yes.
shit. Okay. I will make it short then. Um, I think MJF is one of the best talkers in the modern era. I don't really think you can argue that. But and I think he's good in the ring as well. But to me, and this is I'm going to go very very hard with this, and I don't mean it like that, but to kind of make a little bit of like saying some crazy stuff right now, I'm going to say that I believe MJF is probably the glorified AW version of the Miz, and
Wow.
and when I say it in a very very uh, uh, how can you say it, offensive way, and I don't mean it like that because I think the guy has a lot of potential. I think he has shown that he can do more than just make all these roasts. The stuff he did with Punk, that was much more character based. I love that. But I think when I look at AEW's roster, there just is so many talented guys. Um, and when I look at MJF, I just don't think he is the best guy there. And I think when it comes to being the world champ, I think you should be the best guy there, at least for a period of time. And to me, he's good in the ring, but he is much more just this good talker. And I don't think being the world champ is the right spot for that. He is just this coward kind of talking heel, and I just think there's so many talented guys that can do that or other stuff that's better. And Adam Cole is a good example. He can talk, maybe not as amazing as MJF can, but then he can talk on a more storyline based level. MJF also is very much just roasting people, where Adam Cole is able to do much more different stuff, and I will say is a very much better wrestler in the ring than MJF is. Brian Danielson is much better when it comes to the in ring stuff. I would say. I think there's a lot of options that I would prefer in that spot. And to take it a little further down, and that's probably even also just more an attack on the idea of the four pillars as a whole, because the four pillars is more so WWE's version of the Mount Rushmore that we have always talked about, or just in wrestling in general. And I'm not really a fan of the four pillars because I get the idea of it that it was these four young stars that was supposed to be the future of AW, but I don't really think many of them necessarily are that. I don't think Jungle Boy is there at all right now. I don't think Sammy is there at all. Darby can maybe get there, but I don't think he's anything more than a mid card right now. And with MGF when it comes to him, which is actually the point of this, I just don't think he is the biggest star they have there. He is a good talker for sure, but he's also young. Like he still has a lot of time to improve, and I think this was maybe too much too soon when it comes to him. And again, that comes to the four pillars. That this idea of having the four pillars and building them that way has probably also hurt those four a little bit, because now everyone expects, oh, these four are the future of the company. And I think that's kind of hurting them, that we expect so much of them instead of focusing on like the Mount Rushmore, the four biggest stars of the company. That could be Omega, Jericho, Moxley, the guys that started being the world champs, and all that stuff. That will make more sense, putting that pressure on them, treating that as our biggest stars. But when we put this over on the young guys and expect so much from them, that can also kind of hurt them. Um, so that it's a little bit of a mix with MJF and just four pillars in general. But I think that's putting too much pressure on MJF, and I don't think he is there yet where he deserves to be that big champ. But that's just my opinion. And with that said, I still think he is a great wrestler. This is just too much too soon, I would say. Yeah.
Before I go on with mine, I do have
Mhm.
to. I have to talk some positive about MJF because mine is
Yes.
also kind of looking quite negative. But
Mhm.
MJF genuinely is one of my favorites in the industry. I'm just gonna go like
Yes.
a bit inside, like
Mm.
inside with this, like
Yeah.
talking about my life in the sense that
Yeah.
I'm going to All In, right? So I'm getting some of my friends into wrestling, and the
Yes.
one story which I found kind of funny, the one story which my friends ended up really liking, these like casuals who never watched wrestling before, like barely watched
Yeah.
it, was the Four
Mm.
Pillars. This
Okay.
idea of like these four stars rising, like n-
Ah.
they didn't really like Jungle Boy. They were just like, why is he here? I feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
Jungle Boy has a lot to prove right now, which I feel
Mm.
like he's starting to kind of get a grasp with the heel stuff, but
Yeah.
that's kind of developing, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Darby Allen really connected with. He's always connected with me, Darby Allen. I feel
Mm.
like he has a great story. I feel like he's so unique, and
Mm.
unique is needed in wrestling.
Yes.
Sammy, I like him more than the average person, but I agree that he's not this world champion level guy, which maybe
Yeah.
the name implies.
Mm.
MJF, to me, one of the most entertaining guys in the company. There's
Mm.
so many guys who I feel directionless, right? And they
Yeah.
feel like they kind of go from main events to mid card depending on their
Mm.
booking. MJF is a guy who, whenever he is given a story, whether you think it's good or bad, it is the most important story in the company 9 times out
Yes.
of 10. The stuff with Adam Cole, I think, is incredible. The stuff with the Four Pillars, and maybe this is just bias because this is at the time where personally, um, wrestling was really enjoyable for me because I was getting my friends into it. But
Yeah.
I found the Four Pillars really enjoyable. I found the stuff with World Low really enjoyable. I found the stuff with CM Punk to be the best stuff in AEW. So I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of MJF. However, I feel like if MJF, and this is my hot take now, the last of this video,
Mm.
I feel like MJF wouldn't be as good as he is now in AEW. I'm in WWE.
Mm. Yeah.
So the reason I don't think MJF would be as good in WWE than in AEW is you kind of look at the stuff he's doing and it's very much like, how do you say, like very unscripted, very, he kind of crosses the line, and I feel
Yes.
like he wouldn't really be allowed to cross that line in WWE. I feel
Yeah.
like he's been kind of referred to as the Miz, and while I think he's going to be bigger than the Miz, of course,
Yeah.
people,
Yeah. Yeah. Clearly.
I feel like he's that similarity is kind of going to grow because he's not going to be able to do the stuff that makes him so unique. He's not going to be given the time, I don't think at least, to be as big a star as he needs to be. Like he is essentially, in my opinion, maybe this is another hot take, he is the main character of AEW right now.
Mm.
At least that's how I view a world champion. Like to me, the three main characters of AEW in their history are MJF, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Page.
Mm.
And also for a small period of time CM Punk. But anyways, I digress. Um, MJF in WWE, I feel like he wouldn't be like scripted, but he'd be a lot more scripted. He wouldn't be given the creative freedom that he has. He wouldn't be such a developed third dimensional character like he is with these traumas that turn him into the monster he is. Like, let's be
Mm.
honest, when it comes to WWE, the only characters that really get those third dimensional traits are the bloodline, the people in the bloodline. And once you
Yeah.
leave that bloodline story, you're kind of given this character, and no matter how big you are, you kind of stick to it. You stick to these cliches. And people have been talking about for years how MJF is going to be a success in the WWE, how he's going to be a world champion, how he belongs in the WWE, how 2024 and all of that, but I don't see it. I have never seen it.
Yeah.
MJF thrives off the environment that AEW gives, and that environment is not there in WWE. AEW, for better or for worse, is this place where the prisoners run the asylum, basically. whereas WWE is a lot more, again, for better or for worse, structured, and I feel like that
Yeah.
structure will hurt MJF in my opinion.
Yeah. 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 Can I say something on it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I actually agree very much with that. I know there's been a lot of talks with that, and it is actually it's pretty interesting just thinking about it because MGF maybe going to WWE and all of that is a very interesting conversation because there's so much talk of it, and it's pretty funny when the guy is such a big name in AEW that it's even a conversation that maybe he could go to WWE one day. So yeah, that's pretty funny just as a simple thing. But I very much agree with you, and I think with all the bad stuff I just said with being a glorified version of the Miz and all of that, just to put it on some saying some crazy stuff. It's I also mean that in a good way because him being this glorified character, this big talker, all that stuff, as you said, 9 out of 10 times he has the most important story in the company. He is the main character of AW kind of right now at least. All of that is also because of how they're treating him in AW. So if he went to WWE, he would lose all that glorified stuff and he is glorified in AW, and then you can argue if that's deserved or not. Um, there's there's really good reasons for why it is deserved, and I can't argue with that. He has deserved it. But if you remove that glorified style of how much AW treat him, he will just be basically the Miz in WWE. And I think he will be. I think he will just be a new version of that. This coward heel coming out, talking, and then getting beat in a match. Or if he wins, it's because of some weird stuff that is either
Bronson Reed
distraction
interferes.
or distraction or something. So yeah, I think that is how he would be treated if he was in WWE. And as you said, that very much of what he says is over the top and too much, and that works because of where he is, and that just do not work in WWE. Like think something like Roman Reigns and all the stuff with Bloodline. That's the biggest story they have right now, and that's probably what you can consider their version of MJF, and that's a good story and all of that, but it's very like how can you say it? Like it's very specific in what it does. It doesn't go over the line. It's not this hardcore stuff. It's very storyline. It's very like it could kind of be like it kind of reminds me of the Lion King in some ways in how this story progresses, and that's not meant in a bad way. It's a really really good story, but it's just very um, fairy tale story based and a lot of layers and all of that. That's great, but the MJF stuff is much more hardcore, much more over the top and all of that, and there's much more freedom in that. Where the Roman stuff is much more we are following a specific line of how stuff should happen, and where the storyline takes us. So yeah, I agree with that. I think MJF will fail because the creative freedom he will have in WWE will be basically non-existent, or at least very very small. So yes, I agree with that, but it is a very very big conversation, for sure. So yeah.
But what do you think? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Let us know in the comments. I've been Cosk. I've been joined by Andarell and
Hey,
Andarell.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Okay, yeah. I just want to say hey guys, and thank you for watching this, and thanks to Cos for having me on here. So yeah, of
Thank you for joining. Have a good day.
course.